Good morning, friends, and welcome back to the course Heat Transfer Operation. In earlier session, we have seen the introduction about the course. Now we begin with the next session, that is the section number 2, that is conduction. Now we see that in heat transfer operation, there are three modes: conduction, convection, and radiation. Now this is the very basic and prime mode of heat transfer known as conduction. In conduction, we see how the heat actually transfer. Heat can travel or move from one place to another in several ways, and the different modes of heat transfer include the conduction, convection, and radiation. Meanwhile, if the temperature difference subsists between the two bodies or the system, heat will be there and the heat driving force is there. So there is a way to transfer the heat from the higher to the lower system. Actually, conduction is the micro way of heat transfer. Conduction is the microwave of heat transfer. And for the conduction to be happen, there are some properties of the material which are very useful for the heat transfer. The first property is the thermal conductivity, and it is the property of substance which shows the easiness of heat to be transferred. Higher the conductivity, more the heat to be transferred, and simultaneously, if the conductivity is lower, then lower heat is to be transferred. Thermal conductivity of a substance can be depend on the chemical composition of a substance, then the phase, structure, temperature, pressure, and homogeneity of a substance. The next important property while studying the conduction for the heat transfer is the specific heat capacity. As thermal conductivity is responsible for the heat propagation due to the thermal gradient, so the same way heat stored by the material at any specific temperature is represented by the specific heat, and its unit is kilojoule per kg degree Celsius. Specific heat is defined as the thermal energy required to raise the temperature of a unit material by 1 degree Celsius. In this way, for conduction to be happen, we need to study the thermal conductivity and we need to study the specific heat. So the base of conduction is recognized well before the century by physicist J.B.J. Fourier. The driving force is responsible for the heat flows, electricity flows, or the fluid flows. Conduction is purely molecular phenomena, and in conduction, heat is transferred from one molecule to other depending on its energy level. So this is attributed to the free electron transfer and the vibrational energy of molecules. In solids, conduction is very predominant as compared to liquid and gases. The structure of the solid or the molecular compactness of the solid is greater as compared to liquid and the gases. So for the steady state heat conduction, rate of heat transfer or the flux is governed by the Fourier law, and which states that Q is equal to minus Ka dt upon dy, where Q upon A is the heat flux, A is the area in meter square, dt is the temperature driving force in degree Kelvin, dy is the one dimensional steady state distance of the heat flow in meter, K is the thermal conductivity constant, and the rate can also be defined as the driving force upon the resistance, so that Q can be adjusted equal to minus dt upon dy upon Ka, and finally it means that Q is directly proportional to the thermal conductivity. Heat flux is directly proportional to the thermal conductivity. So if more is the heat transfer rate observed in high thermal conductivity material, some of the high thermal conductivity material is listed here. Silver, copper, aluminium, steel are known as the good heat conductors. And for the low thermal conductivity materials like glass wool, thermocol, wood, etc. are the good thermal insulators. In this way, we have seen the different ways of heat conduction to be happen. Now, while heat conduction is to be happen, there are some resistances we need to consider, and these are the series and parallel resistances. So let us see the use of Fourier law for different conductive materials arranged in series and parallel. For that, we have to consider one wall or the slab, and through the slab, the heat conduction is to be there. If the heat to be transferred from temperature higher T1 to lower temperature T2 through the slab having the length L, having the area A. A is the area which is normal to the heat transfer. So the Fourier law for the flat wall heat transfer at steady state, where T is the infinity, is given by Q is equal to delta T upon L upon Ka, and where delta T is equal to T1 minus T2, which is the driving force for the heat transfer. L is the wall length, A is the wall area. So the slope of the line can be given by the equation delta T upon L is equal to Q upon Ka. It means that if the slope is higher, the conductivity is less, or slope is less, conductivity is higher. In this way, we again see the resistances in series. If different slabs of different material are arranged closely in contact with each other, we have the system having resistances in series, and the heat flux is given below for such systems. Here in the figure, we see that three different slabs are attached to each other. The conductivity for each material is different, K1, K2, K3. Length for each material is different, L1, L2, L3. Then temperature is also different, T1, T2 and T3. So for the resistances in series or the heat transfer through the compact three different slabs is given by heat flux, overall heat flux is equal to delta T overall upon R1 plus R2 plus R3. R1, R2 and R3 are the resistances offered by each slab. But as per the first law of thermodynamics, Q overall is nothing but the Q1 plus Q2 plus Q3. But all you know that Q1 is equal to Q2 is equal to Q3 as per the first law of thermodynamics. So the Q overall is equal to delta T1 upon R1 is equal to delta T2 upon R2 is equal to delta T3 upon R3. In this way, finally, we have derived the equation Q overall is equal to T1 minus T3 or Ti minus T3 upon the different resistances. In this way, the heat conduction is going on, and for parallel resistances or the material which is arranged in parallel, and for that the resistances we have to calculate in heat transfer. Here for resistances in parallel, the heat for the section L2 must pass through the both material, that is L1 and L3. So for L1 and L3, the resistances are given. R1 is equal to L1 upon K1A and R3 is equal to L3 upon K3A. But for the material K2, or for the material in which the heat must be passed through the L1 and L3, the resistance or the parallel resistance is given by the formula 1 upon R2 is equal to 1 upon small r1 plus 1 upon R2. And R1 and R2 is the resistances of material 1 and 2 respectively. And finally, we have derived the equation 1 upon R2 is equal to K1W into the bracket Y1 plus Y3 upon L2 plus K2W Y2 upon L2. Here W is the width of the slab and the total resistance of the slab is given. RT is equal to R1 plus R2 plus R3. Now again, after learning the resistances in series and parallel, we must look out the conduction through the hollow cylinder or the different shapes. For the hollow cylinder, where the area of cylinder is equal to A is equal to 2 pi RL, and if we assume that the thermal conductivity all over the cylinder is very same with respect to length, and the temperature and the heat flow area increases as the radius from inside to outside. So the Fourier equation for the hollow cylinder is given. Q is equal to minus K into the bracket 2 pi RL dt upon dr, where A is mentioned above, area of the cylinder, and the normal to the heat transfer. R is the length of the heat transfer. So after integration and after solution of the equation, finally we'll get Q is equal to 2 pi RLM LK delta T upon delta R, where RLM is the log mean radius, and sometimes we use the log mean area with log mean radius, like ALM is equal to 2 pi RLM L. So the final equation can be written as Q is equal to K ALM delta T upon delta R. In this way, we can find out the heat flux through the hollow cylinder, and the conduction to be happen through the hollow cylinder. Now it's the time to study the heat conduction through the hollow sphere. In hollow sphere, actually this area of the sphere is 4 pi r square, and if we again same way as that of the cylinder assume that the K is constant everywhere with respect to temperature, and the heat flow area increases as the radius from the inside to the outside. So the Fourier equation for the hollow cylinder is equal to Q is equal to minus K into the 4 pi r square dt upon dr, where A is mentioned above, and the normal heat transfer, normal to the heat transfer, and R is the radius of the sphere. So after integration, finally we have the equation Q is equal to 4 pi K R1 R2 delta T upon delta R. Here delta T is nothing but the temperature difference. T2 is the outside temperature of sphere and T1 is the inside temperature of sphere. So, and delta R is equal to R2 minus R1. AGM is the geometric mean area, RGM is the geometric mean radius, under root of R1 up into R2, and the final equation is Q is equal to K ALM delta T upon delta R. In this way, the conduction is going through, and after studying the one-dimensional heat conduction, we need to see the thermal variation, thermal conductivity variation along with the material. As far as we concern with the homogeneous material where K is constant, but sometimes we have to deal with the material having the larger temperature range, and the thermal conductivity variation may be there or may be prevalent. So the linear relation for the thermal conductivity vary with the temperature is given as K is equal to K0 into 1 plus alpha T, where K0 and A is constant. Now the heat transfer with the heat generation. Sometimes what happen actually in the material itself, in the solid where the heat transfer is prominent, in that particular solid heat generation is also there. In some applications like electrical heating and in nuclear heating, we have to deal with the normal heat conduction and heat generation in the material, but this is not the part of your course. And after learning the steady state heat conduction, we have to deal with the unsteady state heat conduction. Actually, in the heat transfer of unsteady state heat conduction, we have to consider the variation of heat transfer with time along with the dimension. So it also consider that as the number of influential variables increases, the solution become very lengthy and difficult. So we have to start with the simple case of the one-dimensional unsteady state heat transfer as T, that means the temperature, which is the function of Y and T, time and distance. Then finally, we have to solve the heat flow equations with 3 dimensions at unsteady state in rectangular coordinates, but our course is limited to one-dimensional steady state heat transfer. So this is the constant for this course. We need to tackle with steady state heat conduction in unidimensional only. And finally, the conduction is briefed here, and our next session is based on the convective heat transfer. Till there, thank you.